Good evening and welcome to the regular City Council meeting for the City of St. Peter. It's Monday, June 12th at 7 p.m. Would all rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, we are called to order. Approval of the agenda. Everybody's got a copy of the agenda. Are there any changes or corrections, Brad?
Madam Mayor, I wish to move from the consent agenda the retroactive temporary tobacco license and place that prior to reports on the.
Okay, we are going to move that as our last item of new business. Is that okay? Well, I suppose we need to do it second to last, Barbara, because we're going to be calling for a closed session, or where would you prefer that?
Because we're coming back in after
Okay.
closed sessions.
So is there a, let's see, so we have a motion with that revision. All those in favor? Oh, we need a second. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved with that revision. Next up, approval of the minutes. The minutes are printed. The minutes of the May 22nd, 2023 meeting are printed on pages 6 through 10 of the packet. Are there any revisions or corrections to the minutes as distributed? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The minutes are approved. We have time on our agenda to hear from visitors. Is there any member of the audience who'd like to discuss any agenda item? Hearing none, we have time for general visitor comments. Any comment on any matter whatsoever? Hearing none, we will move on to the approval of the consent agenda, which has been revised as previously described. The consent agenda begins with the memo on page 11 of the packet and concludes with a, concludes with the resolution on page 31. The consent agenda includes the following license applications subject to payment of the licensing fee in compliance with City Code regulations. On sale for Gustavus Adolphus College. Sunday sale for Gustavus Adolphus College. The dates are all listed within the packet. Temporary on-sale liquor for the St. Peter Chamber. Temporary show for the St. Peter Chamber. Temporary gambling for the Knights of Columbus. And the following seasonal appointments with wages as printed in the packet. Haley Telshaw as seasonal recreation leader, and Johnny Kennedy as seasonal laborer / stormwater. And the schedule of disbursements for May 18th, 2023 through June 7th, 2023. Is there any discussion of the consent agenda? Hearing no discussion, is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat.
Aye.
Councilmember Shetterstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. We have no items of unfinished business before us tonight. Our first item of new business is the adoption of a resolution awarding a bid for 2023 library condenser HVAC replacement project to be funded by a 2023 equipment certificate. And Joey is here to tell us about that.
Thank you, Mayor Noel and council members. I am with you tonight asking you to award the bid of the 2023 library condenser HVAC replacement project to Gog Sheet Metal of New Ulm in the amount of $89,800. In addition to that, there is a $3,500 5-year compressor warranty, a $750 3-year labor warranty for a total of $94,050 even to be funded from the 2023 equipment certificate. So as you know, City Council authorized solicitation of bids, and we did receive 6 bids for this. The bids are on page 32 on the memo there. We had 3 bids from Gog Sheet Metal, Pioneer, Schwickert's, and then Train also submitted bids. Although, as you can notice, the bid I am recommending is not the lowest. I am recommending the Daikin unit be accepted due to the fact of the 5-year warranty of parts for that. Again, this is funded from the 2023 equipment certificate, and everything is laid out on page 34 of the resolution to accept that bid, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have tonight.
Questions for Joey? Brad?
So was there 150,000 budgeted for this?
You know, we were expecting 175,000, so, and that was due to a couple different vendors giving us, you know, approximate value of these items, so well under what we expected.
And yeah, I agree going with the option, particularly since we're so far under budget, to get the extended warranty on the parts. I think that'd be the way to go. I agree with that.
Any other questions? Hearing nothing further, the resolution awarding bid for a 2023 library condenser HVAC replacement project funded by the 2023 equipment certificate is printed on pages 34 through 35 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember DeVos.
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat.
Aye.
Councilmember Sharpston.
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye. The resolution is approved. Moving along, adoption of a resolution approving a request for city assistance for a craft sale at Minnesota Square Park. That begins with a resolution on page 36.
So, Mayor, members, as the mayor mentioned, it starts on page 36. There's information included in your packet about use of the park, and they've reserved the park. Joey's here if you have any other significant questions related. He's been really the person that's worked closely with this group. We've had a few ups and downs. This is frankly a little bit in the gray area related to community festival or not, since events of this type are more and more, at least from my perspective, from my chair, going into the for-profit world for organizers. So it's not a non-profit group that's organizing this activity. We do believe that it will bring a number of folks to your community, and it's a reasonable and rational use of the facilities that you have. And so we're happy, I think, to provide opportunity for them to set up in the park for that June 24th date. Certainly use the restrooms. They're open anyway. This isn't something that we're doing extra. The extra for that would be use of the restroom key, and therefore supply use in the restroom. They'd be responsible for restocking paper towels, toilet paper, those types of things. Again, this is kind of pushing into that little bit more gray area, but we think it's a reasonable use of your facilities, and again, would bring people to town. The resolution's included in your packet, just a page or two later on page 38. Be happy to answer any questions, or if you have something more technical, Joey's here to answer, since he's been working with this group very closely to kind of corral them and make them go. We are requiring the normal type of insurance and those types of things that we do for community festivals.
Questions for Joey or for Todd? Carrie?
I guess I just have a question. It doesn't look like it from the memo or from their letter, but are they planning anything else other than just having vendors selling crafts, or is there music? Is there food?
So I'll let Joey respond to that one.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Councilor Johnson, they had indicated to not have food available for this event or any entertainment for this event. This is kind of a indicated it'd be a trial run in St. Peter. They do these in the area and would love to capture a prime location in St. Peter and see if it worked out.
Okay. And, oh, sorry, Dustin?
No, I was actually just adjusting.
And what day of the week is June 24th?
It is a Saturday, I
That's
believe.
Saturday, okay. I was just curious because I hadn't heard of this before, and a lot of times these cross the desk of the Tourism Bureau, and so I just was curious if we think they'll be applying for a grant at all.
They had not indicated that, and we're seeing more and more requests like this come in. A lot of requests using community center space. This is the first kind of outdoor location, and as Todd indicated, feel that it's a proper use of the park. We did have them rent the pavilion. We didn't want this event to take place when someone's trying to have a wedding go on or like a family reunion or something like that, and then have this event impact that. And since we don't really have an overall park fee, they were responsible for renting the pavilion for that day.
I think that's really sensible and a good plan, sort of a compromise, since, as you said, it's not a nonprofit organization. We'll be interested to see how it goes and whether or not they're interested in coming back and what the impact is on the greater business community. Hopefully, if people come here, they're gonna eat at a restaurant in town, shop in one of our stores downtown as well. So, Carrie?
Did they indicate how many vendors, and did you specify where they can set up?
Yeah, so Councilor Johnson, I am meeting with them this week. We talked about logistically setting up on sidewalks that are accessible and the plaza area. I don't recall their actual number, but they indicated to me that this wasn't an overall super large craft fair. But I guess I'll find out more this week. I can report back.
Weather may have a significant role.
True.
Any other questions regarding this one? Hearing nothing, the resolution approving a request for city assistance for a day at the Park Craft and Vendor Show is on page 39 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Brumbault.
Aye.
Councilmember Sherrstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp.
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
Mayor Noel.
Aye.
Councilmember DeBosse.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Next up, adoption of an ordinance modifying city council members' salaries. That begins with a memo that starts on page 40 of the packet.
Mayor members, this is something that has been directed by previous councils to be reviewed on a regular basis by city councils, by subsequent city councils, and so that's the case that started that process here in, I believe, March of this year. The council had a number of discussions about this issue, and so you'll see that information included on page 40. What you see in front of you is based on the discussion the council had at workshop and at a number of different, 2 different workshops on page 42. This is setting a modified salary for the mayor and council members. Let me point out a couple of ways that it's similar to your previous ordinance and a couple of ways that it's different. One of the ways that it's different is that it does index council member salaries at a certain percentage of the mayor's salary, and so that is not changed, nor is that percentage changed. The amount that the mayor is paid currently under your current ordinance is $8,000. This proposes a modification to $10,000, making the 75% for council members, well, $7,500, so that's how the math works. This sets up a process by which a designated indexing tool is utilized. The Minneapolis, St. Paul, Bloomington, Minnesota, Wisconsin CPIU, as reported by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I was going to say Bureau of Criminal Apprehension of Labor Statistics.
I know we're politicians.
And so it indexes that, so that is the number that you follow. It's not something that I have an impact on or you have an impact on, or really, frankly, anyone in the community has an impact on. It's developed by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And so this would modify the salary of the mayor and then therefore the council on an every other year basis. And so that's following state statute, which essentially says that the council has the right to modify the pay for mayor and council members after an election occurs at a local level. And so as an example, you have an election this year in November. And so if you did approve this or any change, it would have to occur after that election, but then it would be effective on January 1st. So the election is the second week of November, so January 1st would be the effective date. This, again, indexes it against the consumer price index, as I indicated, and provides for that ongoing movement or a reduction if there was a reduction. I mean, frankly, there hasn't really been a reduction in the CPI, but it has changed dramatically over the last 3 to 4 years from a very, very low number to somewhat higher numbers. And again, this would index it. This follows a process that you've seen in a couple of neighboring communities. I think it's also important to note that this still would put you underneath the salaries for North Mankato and New Ulm. but certainly is higher than our friends in, say, Eagle Lake or Le Sueur as an example. And that's probably about the range that you should be in based on the level of activity that you have and based on the number of things that you make decisions on in any given period of time or in any given year. So I'd be happy to entertain any questions that you might have. Again, this is a policy issue that you've discussed on a number of different occasions. This, I believe, represents the discussion that you had previously, and I believe falls within the state law and the requirements that are necessary to move this forward.
Questions for Todd or any comments? Carrie?
Well, I have a comment. I know that it's not popular to raise a council salary, but the way that I look at this and have looked at this is, well, the first point is that this hasn't been increased since 2016. It's been quite a while since then. A lot has changed since then. But also, if we want this opportunity to be a council member to open up to more people in the future, we have to think about what their time is and what costs they may have, for instance, childcare. And so I think it's really important to look at this every 2 years, and I'm glad that we have this process. And I really support this resolution to increase, and I'm glad that there's also a process that ensures that this isn't enacted until after the election. I think that that's fair.
Thanks. Any other comments? Dustin?
Point of clarification, Todd. Moving forward, the city council then would not be reviewing our salaries every 2 years.
Well, it is something that is already on record that we would review. I don't know that there's the necessity to think or provide for action unless there's a council want to modify this. So I think that's at the council's discretion. Previous resolutions have told the city administrator to bring this up in every other year in that odd year in the spring of the odd year. And so that's how we move forward.
Okay. And I know I spoke to a couple former council members, and this is always a hot button issue when it's brought up of addressing your own salary. Have we ever had an increase of this magnitude?
I have to tell you that honestly, I've not gone back and done the numbers related to the history of this. My recollection over 25 years is that it changes very, very infrequently, but I can't tell you a percentage increase, whether this is the most. Frankly, I'd be surprised if it wasn't, but I can't tell you that for sure.
Brad?
So addressing, yes, it does look like a substantial change, but as Carrie indicated, it's been since 2016. So basically going to 2024, that's 8 years. So it's actually less than 3% a year if you actually do the math as to what the increase is. I think we've done a fairly good job of comparing what our neighbors of similar size are paying. So that's why essentially I'm comfortable by being able to, if I can explain it, I'm comfortable with it. And I think being able to explain that it's less than 3% a year on average. And we're lining up a little under New Ulm, North Mankato. I'm very comfortable with it.
Carrie?
Yeah, I just to follow up, if we haven't had an increase since 2016 for council members, it's gonna look like a substantial increase just to get caught up, and that's why it makes sense to look at it more frequently and look at the cost of living adjustment. I'll also say we meet, I think, more than most councils meet and are assigned to more boards than more councils meet. So, we're all very dedicated people. The future councils will also be very dedicated people, and we want to enable them to be able to do this job and open it up to a larger, more diverse community if possible.
Any questions? Dustin?
I just struggle when looking at the past few months of each decision we've made. We've had to increase refuge rates. We've had to increase rates for electricity. The taxpayers have been hit with an increase in just about everything they're paying for. And within that same window, the percentage we're asking for in an actual change for next year, that is substantial. Yes, we can say it's over 3% over an extended amount of time, but this is a large percentage change we're asking for.
Can I respond to
Yeah.
that? I think previous councils have prided themselves in not increasing because they didn't need it, because perhaps they're retired and they sort of didn't act on this when they could have and should have, because they were thinking about their own lens and their own experience. what I'm hoping to do here, if we pass this, is to make this opportunity available to more people, working people, younger people. We need to be the voice of this community. We need to represent our community. And I think this is a step in the right direction. And I understand your point. There have been a lot of increases. There's increases everywhere. Costs are going up. But again, you know, time has value, and we put a lot of work into being council members. And I think, to me, this change is a long time coming. And it's really unfortunate that it's happening now when everything else is increasing, as opposed to this just being adjusted along the way.
Brad?
I'd just like to agree with Carrie on that. So much of what has happened in the past is a lack of incremental increases, not just on this issue, but others, which has led to a lot of the substantial changes. My opinion is people are going to say it's not the time. When it comes to council wages, people are always gonna come up with the argument, it's not the time, and that's why this got put off. I mean, at some point, it has to be the time. So that, I personally think at some point, we just have to make a lead. I'm up for re-election this fall. I'm willing to put my seat on the ballot for it. Why? Because even if it's not for me, the next person in line deserves to be paid that as well.
Further discussion? Hearing nothing, adoption of an ordinance modifying council member salaries is on page 40 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Sharstrom,
No.
Councilmember Ramp,
Yay.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. Moving on to adoption of an ordinance modifying the city code regulations for weeds and tall grass.
Mayor and members, this is an item that starts on page 43 of your packet. You have discussed this on many, many occasions, and in fact, this is probably one of the issues that you've discussed most over this calendar year so far. So the information is included as your packet is based on the discussions that you've had on a couple of different workshops for sure. We had some goals that were set forward originally as a part of this, which was to simplify the ordinance, to maybe modify or look at what might be viewed as maintained space, to really set standards not just on inches, but other activities that are going on, including going to seed and other restrictions, to really outline cultivated and what that meant, to make sure that boulevards were treated appropriately so that sidewalks along those boulevards and that utilization of what's considered public property continue to be available to folks. And so most, if not all of those items have been discussed. Most, if not all of those items have been included in the draft ordinance that you directed to be published and is before you this evening. I can talk about this for a long time. You can probably all talk about it a lot more than I can, so I would leave with only a couple of different things for you. First of all, on page 46, under subdivision 4, so the lower third of that page, there's been some discussion related to overall the amount of pervious surface. And a couple of you have recalled that there was a decision to not include a percentage of pervious surface. And so subdivision 4, item 1 could be removed from the requirements. That's also true for item number 5, where the no greater than 12 inches and allowing the community service officer to grant exemptions was taken from your original draft. All the other provisions, I think, matched correctly with what your discussion was and with what your recommendation was moving forward. In general, this ordinance provides greater opportunity for property owners to maintain their lawns in a way that does not violate the state statute relative to noxious weeds and those plants or weeds that are defined by the state of Minnesota in that classification. It sets up rules related to setbacks from abutting property owners and from the right-of-way. The right-of-way is an abutting property owner, it's community-owned property. And so it provides for that a little bit later within your ordinance and sets that number at 5 feet. So again, generally, your ordinance provides for an area around a participating property to have 5 feet of mowed area around the 3 or 4 sides of their property, so abutting property, or a fence is provided going forward. It also sets standards or maintains the standards relative to the right of way and ensuring that that doesn't get built up in very tall weeds or grass or whatever else is there, so that has to be maintained. I think one of the things that the council talked about is the ability for people that are using the sidewalk, whether it's a small child on a bike or someone in a stroller or someone else just walking by and their hands moving, and they should be able to be assured that any plantings don't reach up to that height. And again, so that's maintained appropriately. It does provide opportunity for diversity within those boulevards as long as it meets the height requirements. And as long as people continue to remember that when work is going on within the right of way, the city isn't obligated to put it back if it's been modified by the property owner. So as an example, if I put my award-winning tomato plant in there, and now we have to dig that area up because there's a water or sewer or electric need, or there's a telecommunications need, that utility provider is not obligated to maintain in some special way that master award-winning tomato plant, as an example. This is a significant change from where you are currently, I think, by any measure. I would also mention that I believe that it does comply with the new state statute related to native landscapes. And so although the native landscape statute is new through the state legislature, it's been signed by the governor, it has not been tested in court yet. Again, I believe that the ordinance that you have in front of you certainly meets the intent of that statute, and I believe meets it technically as well. Be happy to stand for any other questions. I do think, Mayor and members, that if there's a want to move this ordinance forward, that it certainly could be moved forward with the removal of subdivision 4, 1 and 5, and then we would renumber as appropriate. Again, I'm happy to try and answer any questions that you might have.
Questions for Todd? Emily?
Well, first, I want to just say, I know we talked this one to death, but I think we did a good job of coming to a consensus and really, I guess, for lack of a better word, weeding through a lot of different proposals to come to some sort of agreement. And I think it's important to just emphasize that we did this in the spirit of trying to open doors for community members to try something different with their yard. It can be about native planting and conservation, as well as other aesthetic preferences too. So I just think it's really nice to see that. And I want to thank you, Todd, for the suggestion of removing subdivision for 1 and 5, because that was going to be my main comment, that I thought we had already worked to that conclusion. Another thing I wanted to make mention of is subdivision 4, number 8. It's on page 47. I don't remember talking about or immediately adjacent to any driveway, and I wondered where that language had come from. It's not a huge deal to me, but I just wanted
Where
to.
is it, Emily? I'm sorry.
It's on page 47, number 8.
Number 8, okay.
So, if I may, Madam Mayor, I appreciate that comment. I think that's reasonable. I'm just using, based on my best recollection, I don't really remember having a discussion about yes driveway or no driveway. I do remember a discussion about drainage areas, and that was an important issue related to drainage within neighborhoods and how drainage is typically situated around homes. I don't know that that's a significant issue for me, so whether it was included or not included, I think the ordinance by and large would stand as provided. So if there's a want for modification in that, certainly that's an amendment or motion to approve the ordinance modification that could take place. The language is part of, as you are aware, I believe this language, and specifically that language, is included in the North Mankato ordinance, which is part of the template for this. So I think that's where it comes from. I don't believe it was an addition on the part of staff. I think it's from that original ordinance.
I think you're correct. Looking back at the previous version, which I pulled up on my computer, I did see that it was included in the version that we had reviewed previously.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I had been looking at the, online at the North Mankato website and couldn't find the word
Mm.
driveway anywhere, so I wanted to verify on that.
Sure. Dustin?
It seems reasonable to keep that in there. If you're thinking about a driveway coming up to your property and having to be able to open your doors to get in and out of your vehicle, if your neighbor's planting is stopping you from doing that, it seems logical to be in there.
It really depends on where your driveway is, I think. Like mine is behind my house in the alleyway, and there's no neighbor. I don't have a neighbor concern, I guess.
Brad?
Well, I think it would be covered by the setback rules in here, that you wouldn't be able to actually, if it was your neighbor's driveway, you wouldn't be able to go that far up to it. So I think it would be only your own driveway, because I believe we have setback rules in here that would prevent that. Would that be correct, Todd?
I think it's situational, but generally flat work cement is not included as a part of the setback that's required there. If that was the case, then driveways wouldn't work overall. So we do have driveways that are within the setbacks. It's really a function of structure, which flat work is not considered part of the structure.
Then could we simply amend it to saying neighboring driveways, and then your driveway is your business?
What's the impact for staff on that? Is that reasonable, Todd?
I have to tell you, I'm not sure. I think this will be a new adventure for all of us, frankly, in enforcing this and moving forward. It is such a change. So I don't know that I can tell you, can I tell you off the top of my head how many driveways are within that kind of door swing to their neighbor's property line. I'm just not sure.
Okay. Is there any further discussion, Brad?
So I think we could fit it in here. On page 46, subdivision 4, item 4, it says, any managed natural lawn area must be set back from property lines by at least 5 feet. We could amend that line to any setback from property lines or neighboring driveways by at least 5 feet. Could we, and that would, I think that would
Yeah.
take care of the issue, because then you could do whatever you wanted to your own driveway, but that way it would address, it would be, that way it would cover both.
Property lines. Okay, other questions or discussion
Does that
on
make
that
sense, Emily?
suggestion?
It does.
Justin?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Great.
No, that,
Okay, further discussion.
Mayor members, the only other two things that I'd mention is that this does not significantly deviate from your current ordinance related to how enforcement occurs. The process for that is very, very similar to what's articulated here. And then the last one that I would mention is that this would become effective following state statute. So it's, as an example, not January 1st. So once we have publication and set, it should become effective.
Okay. So I had one comment, which was regarding item number 1, the language we had previously under subdivision 4 requirements. Item number 1, we had previously not favored striking it, but had wanted to say, any owner of a residential lot in the city may transition an area of lawn on the lot to a managed natural lawn area. I still favor leaving that in there because it's just clear, you are allowed to do this. Tonight we discussed, well, we had previously also discussed striking number 5. Tonight we discussed striking number 8 and modifying number 4 to say setback from property lines or neighboring driveways by at least 5 feet. Is that an accurate summary?
I think with number 8, we were just simply striking immediately adjacent to any driveway. That we were leaving natural lawn areas shall not be located within drainage, utility, or public right-of-way. I believe we were leaving that portion.
Is that everybody else's understanding as well?
yes.
Okay, so 8 we're gonna strike immediately. Is there any other discussions? Is there somebody who would like to move to approve this either as it is or as amended?
I move to approve it as amended. Do you want me to read through the amendments?
If Barbara has what she needs, I think we're good.
Mhm.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Ramp,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharpston.
Aye.
The ordinance is approved as amended. Moving on, adoption of a resolution retaining Bolton and Mank, Inc. to provide preliminary engineering for 2024 Pine Street Improvements Project, South Minnesota Avenue to South Washington Avenue. And Pete is here to tell us about that.
Madam Mayor and City Council, our plan would be to bring forward a project for your approval, the 2024 timeline of Pine Street. That would be from Washington Avenue down to Minnesota Avenue. Our goal would be to authorize, what we're asking for tonight is to authorize all the engineering for the project with the idea that we would proceed with the preliminary report and cost estimates initially, and then come back to you with that report, and then determine if we need to proceed further on from that point. Again, we would evaluate all the utilities, street, curb gutter, similar to what we've done in the past, exactly what we're doing on Park Row right now. There's a resolution on page 51 and 52, and I'm available for questions.
Questions for Pete?
So if we don't move forward from the improvement hearing, the items listed below the improvement hearing would be struck and not completed, is that correct?
Correct. It's a little different than what we've done in the past. We've kind of done piecemeal and found that on the timelines that we're into right now, it does get to be a little bit close as far as getting the work done.
Carrie?
Is this street project part of the regular timeline expected, or has this been moved up due to conditions, or?
This is really right where it needs to be. We have kind of in the past couple of years tried to get things on this time scale. And then with the superintendents we've had now, we've been able to get that timeline on here. Our ideal goal is that we're communicating with customers here in the fall. We're getting a project designed and bid so that we have contractors authorized in January so that they know they've got this work, and hopefully we get the best cost.
Okay, great, thank you.
Comments or questions? Hearing nothing further, the resolution, let's see. The resolution authorizing engineering from Bolton and Mank, Inc. to prepare a feasibility report and complete engineering for the 2024 Pine Street Improvements Project, South Minnesota Avenue to South Washington Avenue, is printed on pages 51 and 52 of the packet. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharpston,
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp.
Aye.
Resolution is approved.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Yep.
Pete.
Thanks, Pete.
Next up, adoption of a resolution calling for closed sessions is authorized in state statute to discuss possible land transfers.
Mayor and members, I would anticipate, since this is two distinct items, and as you'll see on the agenda, that I anticipate coming back in for potential action on one. One, I think, is in an early process, and under state statute, it's allowed to be discussed in closed session. As you know, normally we come back on these, maybe not to take action, but if we do come back in to take action, ultimately that could be on 107 West Nassau. Also, you have one new agenda item based on the change in the consent agenda that would come forward, and then reports from the mayor, council members, and city administrator before adjournment. Again, the resolution calling for the closed sessions is included in your packet on the last page, on page 53.
Any questions or discussion? Hearing nothing, the resolution calling for closed sessions is on page 53. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Johnson,
Aye.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember DeVos,
Aye.
Councilmember Bruflat,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharpston,
Aye.
Councilmember Ramp,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis.
Aye.
The resolution is approved. It is 7:39 PM, and we will adjourn to executive session.
We'll be staying here since we're likely coming, well, we're coming back in for some reason, so we're not going to a different room tonight.
4 PM. Oh, wait, are you ready for us, Tony? Is this all being recorded right now?
I just went with it right now. When you
Done.
started talking, I was gonna give you the count, you just, so I just faded it in.
Dynamite. All right. Our next item of new business is adoption of a resolution authoring execution of a lease for city-owned property at 107 West Nassau Street.
Mayor, members, as you know, you had a closed session related to this, and I'd anticipated that potentially would come back into open session. But in this instance, since you want to make some additional modifications, I think it's appropriate that the mayor entertain a motion to table this to an upcoming meeting once that work has been completed.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of tabling, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Tabled. Next up, the temporary tobacco license matter that we removed from the consent agenda is our next item of new business. And Brad, I assume you have something to share with the group.
Yep. Well, well, there's two things. Number one is the idea of, and this is, I brought this up, I don't remember if it was last year or 2 years ago, retroactively approving temporary licenses. I mean, what's the point of city council actually approving temporary licenses if staff can just issue them and then we approve them? It doesn't seem like it really makes a lot of sense. We have a meeting calendars out there for them to follow. In this case, Ambassadors Blues Fest, it's been known when it's gonna be held for a long time. If needed, if the staff really felt they needed, we could have added it to the beginning of a workshop, called a meeting at the beginning of a workshop. I just don't think, I don't think it's appropriate for staff to issue temporary licenses and then come to us after the fact to approve. And it's not, I know it's been a habit in the past that has been allowed, but I'm just not in favor of that. I don't think it's good practice, in my opinion, just to have staff be able to approve when they want and then ask us after the fact. Had there been an objection, and quite honestly, I did have an objection that I would have raised. It could have, but it was too late. It was, in this case, and I think 2 years ago it was a soft drink license. And for that, it wasn't necessarily opposed to it, it's just the idea of retroactively approving temporary licenses. That being said, I do have an issue with selling, and I'm not going to list it as tobacco products, I'm going to list it as smoking products, because with the new laws in the state, there's going to be other things that are going to be able to be sold that can be smoked. But selling smoking products in a city park. I know previously the Smolder has sold at the fairgrounds. That's the fairgrounds business. That's their decision to do this. I don't like the message we're sending as a city. Basically encouraging people to smoke at the city park. You can't get it. If I'm standing 10 feet away from somebody who smokes, it impacts my personal space. Just 5 years ago, the city approved Tobacco 21. You look at Gustavus Adolphus College, they're not allowed to smoke on campus unless they're in a personal vehicle. I believe that must be the case for Regional Treatment Center. It must not be allowed at all, because I see a lot of people smoking under the bridge on Washington Avenue. I'm not pushing at this time for a smoking ban in the parks. What I am pushing is that we do not permit the sale of smoking products on city property, because it is encouraging them to do that. Quite honestly, when I was at the Ambassadors Blues Fest, one of the organizers was thanking the sponsors, and they got to Smolder, and they thanked Smolder, and they said, buy their products and people will be smoking them around here later. I mean, they were literally encouraging smoking at the park. I don't think this is a direction we want our city to go to. We talk about clean air, we talk about a healthy environment. This does nothing to promote a healthy environment. Obviously, I'm not moving a resolution right now, but as we look at these temporary licenses going forward, I think we need to, well, number one, have them in front of us before the actual event takes place. But number two, particularly when it comes to smoking products, which do impact the personal space of the people at the event, that we need to not essentially be encouraging that. This is not coming from the position of somebody who's lived their life in a bubble away from cigarette smoke. I grew up with two parents who smoked, family and friends all smoked. I inhaled a whole hell of a lot of secondhand smoke as a kid. So I haven't lived in a bubble away from this stuff. But I do think it's something that if we want to have a healthy city, we have to at least take some steps to prove that we mean it.
Well, thanks, Brad. I think that this has given us a lot to think about and something to talk about at a future meeting or a workshop, to be sure. I guess I just want to recognize kind of the odd position or the uncomfortable position that staff is on when somebody comes to them looking for a license who's late, and it's through no fault of staff's, but wanting to be flexible for community members. But I mean, point is well taken that people should be planning ahead. Any questions or comments on that?
No, if the council prefers that we not try and assist these folks that apply, if you want to narrow that to smoking issues, that's fine. If you want to talk about gambling permits, other licenses for food or drink, and maybe this is ripe for a discussion that covers all those issues into the future, it would be my request that you at least take some action so this isn't hanging out there. But I understand the point, and if you want to change the practice that's been in place for a number of years, I'm cool with that. We work at the pleasure of the council.
I think it would be a good idea for a workshop just to discuss temporary licenses in general and how we approve them, so.
Yeah.
And what we approve.
All right, is there any questions, further discussion? Daryl?
We do need to approve this, correct?
It would be my preference that you do, but certainly you don't have to. I don't know what the repercussions would be if you didn't. I mean, the previous criteria that you've had in place is, have they been licensed in the past? Do they meet all the criteria for that licensing? Are they appropriately insured if insurance is required? This met all of those requirements. But I understand the policy perspective that you're looking at changing.
Other questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve the license?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Noel,
Aye.
Councilmember DeBost,
No.
Councilmember Bruflat,
Aye.
Councilmember Sharpstra,
Aye.
Councilmember Ram,
Aye.
Councilmember Pettis,
Aye.
Councilmember Johnson.
Aye.
It is approved. Moving on, our next item is reports. First item is report from the mayor. I have nothing to report this week. Reports from council members. Is there any council member who would like to make a report at this time? Hearing none, we will move on to reports from the city administrator.
Mayor members, I have two, one of which I'd like to turn over to Sally to discuss, and that is refuse and recycling changeover. You've heard about this before, but in our continuing attempts to make sure that folks have opportunity to know what's going on in the transition here at the end of this month and into the beginning of next month, I've asked Sally to talk about it just a little bit and to outline maybe just a little bit about what people are going to see coming to their mailboxes for additional explanation and what they're going to see coming to their curbside. So Sally, if you would.
We've been working with West Central Sanitation on getting a letter out, and which one side is a letter, the back side's gonna be a map of when your pickup dates are. Again, we're going to Monday, Tuesdays, or Tuesday, Wednesday, excuse me. Tuesday and Wednesday people will stay the same. Monday is split in half. So if you're a Monday garbage collection and recycling, you'll have to look at your map and see where the split is on that map. And that's coming to the mailbox. And then there's also a calendar with recycling weeks and holiday weeks, and then that's pushed today. So that will be coming. It's coming in a packet. We've got the envelopes all stuffed. It's got red lettering on the outside that says new refuse and garbage maps or whatever on there. So our plan is to put them in the mail on the 15th. And then we're hoping it will come when they start delivering the new Kirby's and recycling containers the week of the 19th. So we'll have a delay because of Juneteenth. There's no mail on Monday, but hopefully everybody will get that letter. And it's going out whether you're a paperless person or not. We pulled everybody with garbage and recycling. So those people will get the new map and the new calendar and the letter. So everything's in motion. Again, like we said, whatever size Kirby you have for garbage, they will be placing out the same Kirby. Everyone's getting a 96-gallon recycling. So they're on pace to do that. LJP will be doing recycling and garbage that last week in June. Leave them out at the curb. They'll be coming around to pick those up and get those removed. So then the first week of July 4th, garbage is pushed a day on that, so it'll be Wednesday, Thursday, but it will also be a recycling week. So we'll have back-to-back recycling, and then we'll go to every other week with recycling based on the calendar. So West Central has been working, we've been working with them. We've had one of their employees, or two of their employees, have been in town last week and this week, and they're driving all the routes to see what's going on and how to get those, and asking questions back to us on those. So they've been really good to work with, and things seem to be moving along. So the more we can get the map out there and how that's gonna go, and the recycling dates will be good for everybody. We will be open for questions and everything else. We know there'll be some questions of people that might have two of one thing that there's no way of tracking that. So we'll work with them, and West Central will help us. One other thing, LJP has stated, starting today and going forward, there aren't gonna be any change-outs unless your Kirby is really broke and tattered. Otherwise, they're not gonna be doing any change-outs for a week and a half, 2 weeks. So they're gonna just basically stay with what they have, so.
Sally, thank you. If there are any questions, please let us know, and as you bump into folks, please spread the word, and watch for this information in your mailbox and at your curb.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, Sally. Next item that I have, Madam Mayor, and members, is the cancellation of the Juneteenth parade. This is something that you approved previously. The organizers have asked that it be canceled, and it may be something that comes back next year to you, but in this event, they're the organizers, and so we try and work with them in the way that they would prefer to see us work with them. So wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. That would have been on Saturday the 17th, along with the activities going on at the community center will still take place as planned with that group. And then there's a wonderful event planned at the high school later in the afternoon, early evening on the 19th as well. So there's great information on the chamber website. All you have to do is Google Juneteenth in St. Peter, Minnesota, and there'll be some great information that pops up for you. Madam Mayor, that's all that I have for you.
All right. Unless somebody has had a change of heart and wants to make a report, that was our last item. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Ben?